If you're injured in a car accident, it's usually pretty clear who to claim from. But what happens when you're the innocent victim of a violent crime? What if the attacker is never even caught? Or what if they just have no money to pay for the harm they've caused? We're about to walk through the crucial system that exists in Scotland, designed to provide some financial justice when it feels like there's nowhere else to turn.
Okay, so this slide really breaks it down, doesn't it? On the one hand, an accident claim is pretty straightforward. You've got someone at fault and usually an insurance company to pay up. But with a violent crime, that whole path can just vanish. This creates what's known as a compensation gap for innocent victims. And that gap is the exact problem this whole scheme was set up to solve. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start by digging into that compensation gap. Then we'll get right into the nitty-gritty. Who's actually eligible? What does the scheme pay? How does the application journey work? And finally, we'll hit the bottom line on what it all means for victims. All right, first up, the compensation gap. Let's really get our heads around this. It's a simple but frankly devastating problem. What do you do when the normal justice system just can't deliver any financial justice? Well, that's when you need a completely different approach. And the answer is CICA. That stands for the Criminal Injuries Compensation Authority. It's a UK government body, and its entire purpose is to run a state-funded scheme to pay compensation to innocent victims of violent crime, covering England, Scotland, and Wales. The best way to think of it is as a safety net. This is not a court case where you sue the person who hurt you. Nope, it's an administrative scheme funded by us, the taxpayers, to make sure victims aren't just left high and dry because their attacker can't be held financially responsible. So this safety net exists, but who does it actually catch? Let's get into the practical side of things, because to get this compensation, there are some very specific and very strict conditions you have to meet. You've basically got 5 key hurdles to clear. The injury has to be from a violent crime, it must have happened in Great Britain, and you need to have reported it to the police right away. But pay close attention to the last 2. Your own criminal record can actually disqualify you, and you absolutely must apply within that 2-year window. There's no wiggle room on that one. Now, that rule on unspent convictions, it is by far one of the most controversial parts of the entire scheme. The main criticism you'll hear is that it essentially weighs a victim's own past against a crime that was just committed against them. And a lot of people argue that's just not fair. Okay, so let's say you meet all those criteria. The next massive question is, what kind of compensation are we even talking about? Well, the scheme breaks it all down into 3 different types of payments. The compensation is divided into 3 main categories, or heads as they're officially called. First, there's the tariff award. That's for the injury itself. Second, you have a payment for any lost earnings from being off work. And third, you can get money back for specific costs, what they call special expenses, like ongoing medical care. So what on earth is a tariff award? Well, unlike in a civil court case where the amount can be all over the place, CICA uses a fixed tariff. It's like a menu. Every possible injury is sorted into one of 25 bands, and each band has a set, non-negotiable payment based on how severe it is. Just to give you a sense of the scale, the tariff starts at £1,000 for some of the lower-level injuries and goes all the way up to a maximum of £250,000 for the most catastrophic, life-altering injuries in that top band, band 25. Now, this is a really important detail. If you suffered multiple injuries, you don't just add up the awards. It doesn't work like that. You get 100% of the payment for your most serious injury, but only 30% for the second most serious and just 15% for the third. And, get this, any injuries beyond the third most serious, you get nothing for them at all. And when it comes to lost earnings, there's a huge limitation that honestly catches so many people by surprise. The scheme pays absolutely nothing for the first 28 weeks you're out of work. That is over half a year with no support from the scheme, which, as you can imagine, can be a massive financial hit. So, you think you're eligible, you kind of know what you might get. What happens next? Let's walk through the actual application journey, from the moment you fill out that first form to when you get a final decision in your hands. The whole process is broken down into 4 main stages. It all kicks off with an online application. After that, CICA investigates everything and sends you an initial decision. If you're not happy with it, your next move is to ask for an internal review. And if you're still not satisfied, you have the right to take your case to an independent tribunal. Seeing a process like this laid out naturally brings up a huge question. Can you handle all this on your own, or do you really need to get a solicitor involved?
The simple answer is no. A solicitor is not officially required. But, and this is a big but, because the scheme's rules are so technical and the process can get pretty complex, getting legal advice is very, very strongly recommended. This is especially true if your case has to go to that tribunal stage, where having an experienced professional in your corner can make all the difference.
Okay, let's pull all of this together. When you step back and weigh all the pros and cons, what's the bottom line? What's the final verdict on the CICA scheme? Look, on the one hand, CICA is an absolutely essential safety net. There's no doubt about it. For many, many victims, it is literally the only route to getting any financial compensation whatsoever. But on the other hand, it is far from a perfect system. The fixed awards, that huge 28-week gap in lost earnings, and that controversial rule on past convictions, those are all very real and significant limitations. And this quote right here just drives the final point home. That 2-year deadline is not a suggestion, it's real. The rules are technical. And the difference between a solid, properly prepared application and a weak one can literally be the difference between getting fair compensation and getting nothing at all. It's a system of last resort, but it's one where getting every single detail right is absolutely critical.